But so supposing you're looking at one corridor, just say you're looking at India, Dubai, right? And then we're looking at how things are becoming easier, and we are preparing for that. According to you, what would you see are the impact of countries outside of India and Dubai, like say China's development in AI, or some of the geopolitical things that are coming up that Snehal talked about? Would that be having an impact on this particular?
I think world is quite well connected,
Correct.
and I think volatility travels very fast, and that's why you've seen market participants like polymer market come into picture, which are giving you odds for every event to happen and what would be the repercussion on a different market. So even if let's say India and Dubai are not able to develop that corridor, and if China and Dubai are able to develop that corridor, is that the question? I think
Not really that. I'm saying it. One is
Impact
the
of
development
geopolitics on
impact
corridors.
of geopolitics
on the India-UAE corridor.
well, geopolitics is the new economics, and that's how we kind of look at it. And currently, if you look at what's going around the world, it's creating a lot of problem. But I think I was talking to the professor outside. So in last 6 months, I've seen a lot of clients talk to us about China plus one and India plus one, wherein the value add could happen in UAE, because UAE has a different tariff arrangement with the world versus China or India. And just the delta between the tariffs between US and India or US and China could actually provide the whole cost of setup for them to do in a country like UAE. And I'm saying UAE as an example because we are talking over here. And that itself gives a good impetus to kind of tell you what is that cost of geopolitics. Because it's the same product when it lands in US. But depending on where it is made, it has a different tariff structure. But if the consumer wants a certain price, he or she would be happy to receive a made in UAE product of the same brand in the US store. And for me, I think that creates an opportunity from a geopolitics perspective to the economics of any country.
Without touching on any political aspect about geopolitics, I think the current situation right now gives us a very big opportunity, especially everybody young now. We are in a world where there is a lack of a leader, whether self-brought or, and I think it's unique. For the last 50 years, the global order has been led by a certain set of countries, and now you have aging populations, you have the lack of economic will, if I may say, which is not so in other parts of the world. And with any change comes opportunity. I think what the global south can do as trade corridors can be quite unique. China is already the largest trading partner for almost, I would say, 150 countries in the world. So there exists leadership. Now, if we have to work with them, if they are ready to work with us, I think those are the challenges.
If I might add a slightly more, maybe a more tactical perspective, I think the other bit, the entity that gets the maximal economic benefit out of a trade corridor would be especially one that's digitized, will be the entities that set the rules, the regulations, right? They'll be the entities that set the data dictionaries on how two sides talk to each other, right? They'll be the entities that set the frameworks on how electronic signatures work, how, all of that stuff, which is the sort of blood, sweat, and tears involved in trading, right? And I think that's the key question, really. Who's setting those rules, right? And if let's say India and the UAE together set those rules on how they trade, and that then becomes something that can be expanded, that's a huge opportunity. Or you end up letting a China or somebody else set those rules, in which case you're playing by somebody else's rules, right? Which is not to say that every trade corridor needs to reinvent the wheel. right? I mean, you follow, the UK's electronic documentation laws, right? Makes perfect sense to. Why would you do something new there, right? But it's figuring out what set of rules you want to play with, and making sure that you set those in motion quite fast, rather than have them imposed on you. I think that's the key, really.
So I think, see, if we are creating a corridor, the maximum number of countries participating in a corridor will create an optimal output. But to create a corridor where maximum number of countries participate, you need to have a trade bloc which facilitates multi-country membership. And one of the popular trade bloc could be like WTO type, and we have seen visibly that how it is getting collapsed. And many multi-country trade blocs are getting collapsed now, and we are going back to more of a bilateral. And a lot of geopolitical relationship which has changed doesn't allow a multi-country corridor very easily. That is the problem now. This has forced people to create a lot of bilateral corridors rather than multilateral corridors. Now, when you create bilateral corridors, maybe any one of the country from either side will benefit, or both the countries will benefit, but you may not get the benefit what you might get in a multi-country, what you call it as corridor. I think 2 years back or a year back, we were in a much comfortable position of creating a multi-country corridor. Now we are much far away from that, and whatever has been established to some extent is rather getting lost now, right? And let's look at payment gateways, right? If you look at payment gateways and money transfer gateways, which used to be so popular and led by 2-3 brands, now that itself is losing away, right? People are trying to create multiple gateways, so therefore, which means that they are moving away from one multi-country corridor to a right bilateral and all that. So I think it is getting challenged more, in my opinion.
That's that's geopolitics playing.
I mean, I always try and in conversations like these, I always the utopia I wish for is a world where trade is not impacted by politics. I think trade and politics can exist. I think trade can improve the political situation of countries. There's enough research about two countries not fighting each other if they do more business with each other. So I think open source trade, if I have to say my wildest dream, is an open source platform for world trade, where all companies, private or public, could author. Why does it need to be 4 diplomats from 180 countries? I think the B2C customer now, the technology innovations which have happened in the world, they're all open source. Everything good that has happened has come from everyone, and it's
No, but unfortunately, this type of digital corridor doesn't allow wealth creation equally across the countries. Right? Wealth creation will happen in the country which has arbitrage, right? So what happens? The other countries who sit in the other side, where visibly seeing wealth get created elsewhere, will not, adapt to this open corridor. No, that's a challenge what a country like India is facing at this point of time.
That's when it continues to be utopian. I think that's. I think we are coming to the end of what I feel. We were able to look at what digital corridor is and what we think are best levers we can use for getting better at developing a digital corridor, and also we looked at how that digital corridor actually can impact a trade order, and what are the other elements that can impact that, even assuming the digital corridor really works well, right? It's just beyond the bilateral activity, is much more than that. So I think we had some very good conversations. If just want to look at one last round, if there are specific industry specific things that you think can be shared, like for example, if there's something in healthcare or medical that you think is happening, which is something with it is different and or new that you want to share, or something in telecom you would like to share, that we'll go through that. and then we'll close.
Not as a trade or as a, so in the healthcare space, like you said, it's a drug movement or a patient movement from one place to the other. So that there's a term called medical tourism also. So there is, but that is again, it's not it's more a lot of, it's again still B2C and not there is to an extent B2B, but hospitals conversation.
So are there things like, for example, standardization of the data sets that we
Correct. So they're coming to
those
that.
kind of
Coming to that, there is a couple of things that comes in the way. One is a lot of the regulatory or a lot of discussion around data security and patient data safety, saying that the data cannot leave the geography. So that comes in the way. So that I'm sure again, blockchain comes as one of those trusted solutions that makes it very secure. So every time you talk about in the excuse that the data will be breached, you don't even let it move. So it should be data interoperable across the globe, because I'm moving across the globe, my data should be moving. So that is one challenge. Otherwise, another thing that I heard from this whole discussion was one about digitization and how digitization brings in transparency. The moment you bring in transparency, that brings in all these concerns, because suddenly I see his price is better than mine, and why should I? And all of these, it's a normal, it's another thing. One more thing that, Professor, when you mentioned, I was wondering, for people who have been in this part of the world for a while, the regulatory aspect and the digitization. Here we have seen the regulator being more digitally driven than the others, and they lead the way. So sometimes digitization is.
So that is here what you will do, you will see a high degree of digital inclusivity.
Exactly.
In a country like India, where you have all types of people and all different types of business involved, and even if you look at all the states in India are not equally digitally inclusive, right? If you go to south, you might see more. If you go to east, it might be less. So there itself, the degree of digital adoption is very different across the state. That could be a challenge.
The otherwise, Professor, from a healthcare database, or a data structure, whether it is disease, drugs, relations, they're all good standards. Most of the standards that are used across the globe, and when it comes to scaling the data maturity, whether it's a JCI or it is a HIMSS accreditation, most of these are global, right? So therefore, a lot has been achieved in terms of the data sets, but it's all about, so we're still holding on to some of these. I believe very wrong practices which we have to let go.
Actually, I think telecoms are helping it in a way where today they block WhatsApp here, and in most of the Middle East countries, audio calls, where the private players are trying to open it up, but these guys are blocking it, and still the license raj still happens everywhere in the world for telecom. So, and now with the data centers, the data not leaving the country, a lot of data centers have been set up here in India. Every country has to set up their own data centers, because previously it was all in Virginia. I mean, the 80%, 90% of the data of the world was residing in Virginia, but now everybody has to set up, and so there's a lot of investment going into data centers locally. In a way, they're again, restricting and not allowing the thing to open up.
This brings in a very, because from a technology perspective, like what happens with us is, even when you deploy something on the cloud, the moment you deploy something on the cloud, you're almost getting a business continuity or a disaster recovery, because it is, if something fails here, an America data center will pick up us. Here we have no choice. If it's an Azure, it has not, unless it is hosted. So the entire seismic data what you call a recovery or a business continuity is gone, because if my data center goes down in Abu Dhabi, there's a good chance that it goes down in Dubai as well.
Yes.
Right. So there is so because of these kind of it's restrictions, I hope we'll want to come out of all this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
For the session, and looking forward to some more restrictions afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you.